Hello, creative people. My name is Kendra, and I'm here today to talk to you about an art project that is an easy invitation to your creativity. So, if you're like me, heading into fall with extra responsibilities, you might want to hang around and get some ideas about how you can simplify your creative practice and make it easy to pick up your paintbrushes amid the swirl that is, well, modern life. All right, so here's what's going on with me. A few weeks ago, I cut a bunch of pieces of paper from my gigantic roll of paper into these sheets that are 6x9, 6x8, 6x9. Anyway, they're a very manageable size. And I chose this size because it's not too big to be intimidating, but it's big enough to get into a little piece of work. And also, when I cut it from my gigantic sheet of watercolor paper, which I showed in my last video, this is about 50 cents of paper, even though it's very nice, high quality Arches watercolor paper, cold press, 156 pound. So it can handle all of the stuff I'm going to throw at it, but still only 50 cents for each piece. So I'm not intimidated by each piece. That's step one for me. Step two is I've started to paint in a very limited palette. And I'm only working with one type of subject matter. That is, I'm working with houses in my neighborhood. So I have 6 so far. This one's still very underway. And then this one, oh my gosh, I wish you could see it here. I have rocks piled on top of plastic wrap. That's the last one. So what I'm working with is just 2 colors. I have iron blue of the Inktense pencil. So this is a water-based media, but it's ink. So it means that once it has dried, it is pretty much set. You can lift a little. I've found that you can lift a little, but it's pretty much set. And then I'm using the QOR, QOR, the QOR watercolor that is, and I keep looking back here because I know that I have my QOR watercolors in a container back here. So let's see here. I'm using the Quin Gold, and the QOR Quin Gold is containing, I think, 2 colors. So this is important because Quin Gold comes in different brands, and each brand has its own sort of mix of pigments. So this one, it has pigments that are PO48 and PY150. So you may get different results if you're using a different Quin Gold. But I chose this one because Quin Gold can go very, very yellow, and it can go very, very orange. So even though I have chosen 2 colors for my palette, that Quin Gold gives me a lot of flexibility. What else? 2 colors, a standard size of paper, a standard inspiration, which comes from our neighborhood walks, and then I can do whatever I want to do. And what I found is that I am getting more inspired to look into ways to do textures and like taking away color, putting color in different ways. So you're going to see me use a very great art tool, which is called toothbrush. You can find any kind of nail brush or whatever, but this is a medium bristle toothbrush. Very good for scrubbing up paper. But warning, if you're not using Arches watercolor paper, you may find that it rubs away the paper cover, the paper itself, especially if you're using like a sketchbook, or I've found that Fabriano paper that I like for other things, it doesn't hold up so great with the toothbrush. And I'm using emery board, so I'll show you that. And I'm also using, as I said, with my rocks, I'm using this plastic wrap. from my kitchen. So that's how I'm making textures, and I'm finding it to be very exciting and very interesting to push into a different area because I'm not thinking so much about color, size of paper, orientation, or even subject matter. I'm just picking those as standards, and then I'm going into this other phase. So keep watching and I'll show you how I've been achieving some textures, and hopefully you can get inspired to get back into your own creative practice. Okay, first things first. Take a look at the inspiration I have for this picture. Isn't that a lovely house with awesome details? Old craftsman style Portland, probably built in the 1920s. And this is a recently redone front yard. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago they did this. Beautifully done, wonderful steps that I'm very, very attracted to, as you can see in the painting that I've been working on. It's pretty much all about the steps. In this one, I'm just still getting started, so haven't really laid on too much texture yet, but I wanted to show the starting piece. I draw the picture with the Inktense pencil, because that's just my way. It's very comfortable to me. And then I just start thinking about what colors I might have. And as you could just see there, that green comes from a combination of that iron blue in the Inktense and the Quin Gold. And here I've discovered the beauty of having a series of paintings. This is why painters do this, I think, because when you get tired of one or you don't know where to go next on one painting, you just pull out the next one and you might have some fresh ideas for the next one. So here's a fresh idea that turned into a small disaster because I did not like how this turned out. I was going over the paint that I had on the paper with the Inktense pencil and added a little bit more of that. And now I'm going to show you my inspiration picture because, it's just too painful to watch. But what happened is it turned out to be a great thing because I brought in the toothbrush and I figured out a way to make that into one of my favorite parts of all of my 6 paintings. So here is kind of the first step. I got that kind of ugly color on there, and then I put down my plastic wrap and covered it with a rock that came shooting out from the side. And I let it dry completely. Later, when I pulled off that plastic wrap, I thought, oh my God, I've ruined my painting. But then I slept on it maybe a couple nights, and then I came up with this other idea. So luckily I got it all on film, so you're gonna see it coming up here real shortly. But while that was drying, I decided to go ahead and get some darks into that upper part of the painting. So with this, if you were a very observant person, you would have seen that in my inspiration picture from my walk, that what I have drawn here, what I'm attracted to in the picture, is just the front entrance and the steps and a couple of the windows. I've completely redesigned this house, and I could do a completely different painting of the same house, and you might not even know that it's the same house because, like I said, I've redesigned it. I took off the whole left side of the house because I didn't want to have a dark color behind that awesome tree. Okay, so here you see the totally ugly color. It didn't turn out the way I thought it should. So I came in with some painter's tape, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape off areas that are not going to get scrubbed with the toothbrush. And it's going to leave a texture that is like really unique, and it looks almost like I've tacked on a collage to the front. Okay, so there it is, all prepared, and here I go in with my medium bristle toothbrush. And there's a little bit of a technique to using the toothbrush, which is why I'm showing this part. Sometimes I come in a little bit from the side, sometimes from the top, but I keep dabbing it with my paper towel so that I can remove all of that paint that I don't like. So here we go, scrub dub. And I love the color that's left over. It's sort of a luminescent, sort of green. that I don't know how I would really achieve any other way. So I was loving that color, but I love it even more when I remove the blue painter's tape and see the heavily textured color that's underneath. Okay, it's all done, and I didn't even wait for the paper to completely dry. I just dabbed it with the paper towel and then started pulling off that tape. So this is not one of those instances where you need to really make sure that it's fully dry. So isn't that interesting? I guess my hand is covering it up, but that texture, and I'm gonna hold it up for the camera in a sec. It just looks like a piece of collage paper that's been stuck on there, but it's not. You just saw the whole process. So I was so pumped from that little coup, you know. I took a part of the painting that I really hated and turned it into something that I really liked. So I thought I would work on values next. And if you're not familiar with the word values in relation to drawing and painting, what it refers to is the range of dark to light colors or light to dark colors, and making sure that in a painting there are the lightest lights, like there's a full range. You have the lightest lights like I have on the door right there, which I better not touch because I'm going to lose my lights if I cover over that white part of the door, all the way to your darkest darks, which in this painting, at least right now, is that roof that I inserted in there. Actually, there's no roof on the house right there, but I wanted to bring those darkest darks into that part of the painting, mostly to make the foliage shine out. And it really does in both the bottom and the top. And finally, on this painting, I think this is where it stands at this very moment, is I wanted to glaze. And so glazing is taking a piece of the painting that you've already painted and let it dry completely, and then go over it with a different color. So there that is. And then, just like that, we're right into the next painting. So this one I want to show you just because the house is just so cool. I mean, it's enormous and there's a lot of amazing detail, and it's going to show up just in a second here on the corner of the screen from the walk that we took. The challenge with a house like this is paring down the details and getting just the pieces that I want to draw out into the painting and not trying to put everything in there. So you'll see that I've eliminated a lot of windows, I've eliminated some roof lines. I just had to really pare it down because my piece of paper is only 6 by 8, and really, who can capture this massive house in just one picture? It would take at least 5, I think. But what a beauty. It's just a couple minutes of this because I didn't get very far on it, and then I'm going to show you progress on a different one. All right, so this is, well, I'm going to look through these different paintings to figure out which one I want to work on, but the first one that was up there is the one that I'm going to work on here. And what bothered me about that first painting, oh, come on, show the painting, there it is that the foliage is just a little too dark. It's a little too orange, and I wanted to lighten it up. So I used the same technique as I did on the other painting of getting out my toothbrush and scrubbing it away. You can also do this, by the way, with a stencil. I've done that before with my painting friends. Everybody brought their stencils in to our classroom space that we were renting, and we all got to try everybody else's stencils for a little bit of lifting with a toothbrush. it's a really fun exercise if you have a few art friends to get together and practice with each other's supplies. And you can see with that Quin Gold that it's really very effective. It lifts out very effectively. Your mileage will vary with the kind of paint that you're using. Some of the blues and reds are very staining, so you may not get such an effective lift. But Quinacridone Gold is good for lifting. And as it turns out, that iron blue in the Inktense lifts a little bit too. All right, so the next thing I'm going to show you is using the clear plastic wrap again, but in this case it turned out really nice, unlike the slight disaster situation that I did before. I wanted to bring a little bit more texture into that, road that is in between these houses, and I wanted to mix up the two colors so that I get some pieces of green while maintaining some of the yellows and some of the blues. So here's like my favorite way of doing it is I get that little piece of plastic wrap on there, and then I load it up with my beach stones. And if you're out collecting beach stones, flat ones are the best for this. The round ones aren't quite as good, but they're good for other things. But if you can get some flat ones, that will be really good for your plastic wrap technique. And then this is something that I've just started doing, and I've read about it and seen other people talk about it, but just keeping a journal, an art journal. So it's totally separate from other journals that I keep, and I'm just keeping track of the techniques that I'm using and whether I like them or not, and if I've seen something that I want to try in a future painting, because I may see something and then forget about it 2 or 3 days later when I get back to my art supplies. All right, this has dried. This is probably the next day because I have a cup of coffee down there and a different shirt on. I wanted to let this completely dry, and that is the trick to the plastic wrap technique. In a second here, I'll pull it up and I'll show you. Really interesting texture in there, and it got some of the green, some of the blue, and some of that Quin Gold is still shining through. So I'm very pleased with that. Now with this one, I decided to try one of my old standbys, which is dragging a stick through the paint. It didn't actually work out the way I wanted it to work out, but I thought I should show you this because I did this and then I tried something else afterwards. For me, making a picture is so very much a process of just keeping going and trying something else and then trying something else, and not giving up on a certain picture too quickly. So I cut my blue painter's tape into long strips using my X-Acto blade, and then I put it on there, painted over the top, and let it dry completely overnight. And it has this really great effect. Okay. And for those of you who've been wondering all this time, when is she going to show the emery board technique? Here it is. This is your chance. What I do first is I wet the paper so there's a nice sheen on all of the background of this paper right now. And then I rub a little bit of either Inktense or watercolor pencil. Anything water soluble will work. Probably even Neocolor 2s would work if you tried it. I haven't tried it, but I'm sure it would work. And then you can drop, there it is, there you can drop the shavings on, and they will disperse a little bit onto the page. You can even spritz it over the top and get a little bit of a deeper, more spread out look. I had this idea of going back to this painting and creating a little bit of depth by making some layers in between those somewhat abstract plants, I guess I could call that. And I continue on, and I'm going to continue on working on these paintings for the next week, and I'll try to get back on a weekly schedule Thank you so much for watching today, and for those of you who come every week and encourage me with comments, I super duper appreciate it. It's what makes it fun to post on YouTube. All right, have a wonderful day. Catch you next week. Bye.